Hi guys, I'm Kristen and this is my channel, Kristen is Fully Booked. Today I'm going to be doing the New Year book tag, which is a list of questions about some of your reading goals in this upcoming new year. So we'll get started. The first question is how many books you are planning to read in 2021? I have no idea how to decide on this one because I read so many more books last year than I usually read. Obviously just like the situation of being home for most of the year and not having a lot going on, and definitely like using reading as an escape, which is my go-to sort of. That's why I read. And so last year I think I read like 108 books or something like that. And I mean, in the past, I've never counted how many books I read before. Like it wasn't something I kept track of, but I would say like guesstimate 20 books a year before that. So I'd like to go somewhere in between those two values, 20 and 108. And I think I'm going to land at like 60, 65. But really, I'm not really one to sort of set specific numbered reading goals and read books just to reach that number. I sort of want to read like what I want to read when I want to read it. And I don't want to push myself to just like read just for the sake of reaching a number. So I think 60, 65 is pretty reasonable based on like how many books I read last year and the amount of time that I have available to me, or at least that I anticipate having in the year before. I actually don't want to read 100 plus books again next year, simply because I feel like as I was using it as an escape, like I was reading instead of doing other important things that I should have been doing. So I'd like to be a little bit more moderate this year. And I think like 60 or 65 is just like slightly over one book a week, which is, I think, very reasonable and very attainable for me, give or take some weeks, or like reading slumps. We'll see how it goes. The second book on the list is to name 5 books that you didn't get to in 2020 and that you would like to prioritize in 2021. So the first book on this list is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. This was a YA fantasy debut. It's set in or influenced by ancient Arabia. The main character has to go on a quest for an ancient lost artifact to save magic, and like the world is dying, as I think. They haven't had magic in 100 years, and so she goes on this quest to find this ancient artifact. I think there's another main character based on the synopsis who is the son of the leader in the world, or the ruler, and I think he is like sort of like set to hunt her down. So like obviously he's the love interest, right? When I first requested the book at the library, or like on my library app, it was like 6-month waiting list on one of the libraries and like 24 weeks or something on the other waiting list. So I have not been waiting that long, but I think it is coming up in a few weeks. And I'm going to interpret that as that people were really enjoying it and they read it really quickly and returned it faster than they had time. The next book that I'd like to prioritize in 2021 that I didn't get to last year is Harrow the Ninth. This is the second book in the Locked Tomb trilogy. I read Gideon the Ninth, the first book in the series, last year. It was one of the most fun books that I read last year. I loved being in Gideon's head. I think her voice is just so, it was so unique. It was hilarious. It was a little bit dark. I feel like I have no idea what's going on in the world. And I'm just really nervous to read Harrow the Ninth. Like I want to, but I'm just so nervous that I won't like it because from what everyone has said, it is drastically different from the first book. The first book is sort of like, it's most commonly described the series as lesbian necromancers in space, which is hilarious. I wouldn't say that that's 100%, like it's accurate, but it's not what the book is about. Gideon was very much so like they are necromancers and they are in space. It's sort of like fantasy meets sci-fi. And Gideon is a lesbian. Harrow might be as well. Harrow the Ninth is apparently written, 70% of the book is from second person perspective, which makes me really nervous. I think it also like plays around with timelines a little bit, or there's like an alternate timeline that happens. It's just bananas. I've just heard it is bananas. My friend was reading Harrow the Ninth around the time that I was reading Gideon the Ninth, and she was texting me like, oh my god, this is like nuts. It's all over the place. I don't understand anything. But she did really enjoy it, and like I think she reread it and to like really get it, like wrap her head around everything that happens, and she still like she loves it. So I want to read Harrow, but I'm super nervous. Okay, the next book that I didn't get to read last year is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I technically did get a copy of this from my library last year. It was a physical copy, and at the time it just wasn't like when I was up on the list and when I got the copy, it just wasn't what I was in the mood for. Like I was going through this a really big like binge of angsty YA fantasy romance heavy like light time, like mood, and The Lies of Locke Lamora is a heist-based adult fantasy of like thieves or like orphaned thieves, and it just wasn't what I was in the mood for when I got a copy. I did start it. I read a couple chapters, and it's not like I enjoyed what was there. It plays a lot around with the timeline, which I don't have any problem with, and I've heard that the two of the characters, Jean and Locke, are best friend goals. So I would really like to read it. It just wasn't what I was in the mood for at the time. And that's kind of like one of the biggest, or one of the main downfalls with library books, is that you sort of have to read it when you get a copy, if there is a list, like a wait list for it. And I just didn't take advantage of that fact. So I had to return it before I was able to read it last year. I heard about this book on Murphy Napier's channel. If you don't follow her, you definitely should. She's amazing, and she talks about The Lies of Locke Lamora all the time. Okay, another book that I like to read is Starless by Jacqueline Carey. Jacqueline Carey is most known by her Kushiel's Legacy series. The first in that series is Kushiel's Dart, and the Kushiel series is one of my favorite series of all time. I'm definitely ramping up for like a reread of Kushiel's Dart soon. Starless is her most recent novel, and it is a warrior training school setup. The main character is either fated or like soul bonded to be the protector for the princess of the land. I really like Jacqueline Carey's historical fantasies, so I am really excited. And the tagline for the book is "Gods walk the earth, but only a mortal can save it." So Jacqueline Carey is an amazing writer, and I haven't read anything by her in a while, so I'm looking forward to it. Next is, I think this is the fifth book, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I do really like Charles Dickens books. I've read a few in the past. A Tale of Two Cities is the one that's kind of like known for its famous intro line. I'm sure you've heard this. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I haven't read it before, and I've wanted to for a really long time. I think I'm gonna use it as sort of like my next pick in my the buddy reads that I do with my partner. We try to read books together. Sometimes it's hard to find books that we both enjoy. I definitely much so more read fantasy, and he reads a lot of like literature, but where we sort of cross over is classics. So we're trying to read more classics together so we can talk about them more, and this is my next pick. We take turns picking books for each other. So I hope that I can get to A Tale of Two Cities sometime this year. And the third question in the book list is, what genre would you like to read more of in 2021? For me, this is definitely contemporary. I have been on record in the past saying like I do not like to read books set in the real world. I read as an escape, and why do I want to read about people like driving their cars and picking their kids up from work and being on their phones? I don't know. It's not what I read. However, I read a couple contemporary books last year, and I was really surprised to like both of them, or all of them. Little Fires Everywhere was the first one a friend of mine loaned to me, so I had to read it. And then, which I enjoyed. I thought it was really interesting. And then the other book was Normal People. Hey guys, editing Kristen here. I totally said the wrong author when I originally was filming this. So the second book was Normal People by Salley Rooney. And I loved it. It was one of my favorite books last year. So I think if I keep sort of like, I always don't think that I like contemporary, but then I'm often surprised by the fact that I do enjoy them when I read them. So I'm going to try to push myself more out of my comfort zone and read more contemporary books. Okay, the next question is name 3 non-related book goals in 2021. I have lots, but I will limit it to 3. First is to practice yoga more regularly. I would like to at least practice 6 days a week. I know how good I feel when I am doing yoga on a regular basis, but it's one thing that, like, when I'm stressed or overwhelmed or like unmotivated, I tend not to, even though it's the thing that when I'm feeling those things that makes me feel the most better. Oh God, that's not English. It makes me feel better when I am stressed and feeling unmotivated. So I'd really like to do yoga at least 6 days a week. I miss going to the studio and having that like studio vibe with other people. So it's a little bit harder to practice yoga at home, but I'm gonna work on it, and I'll make it like a really specific, like smart goal and say that I'd like to 6 days in the morning, at least before noon. That's my goal. The second one is to explore or listen to new singers and artists. I am someone who, I just like listen to random Spotify playlists, and I like songs and like save them, but then I just listen to that song on repeat over and over and over again. And I'm not good at sort of like, if I like a song by an artist, I'm not good at then looking up that artist and finding what else they've done and to see if I like all of their work or a lot of their work. So I'd really like to explore more, because I find that I'm listening to a lot of the same songs over and over and over again, and I want to like break out more into other new artists. Okay, and then finally, third goal is sleep. I would really like to have more regular sleep. I am not a good sleeper. It's part of why I read so many books last year. It's because when I couldn't sleep, I would just like go under the covers and read all night. And I don't, as much as I like to read, I like sleep as well. And I think I will feel like better and have more energy and be more motivated if I'm getting like regular, consistent sleep. So definitely I'm gonna work on that this year, like having like a regular time that I go to bed, a consistent time that I wake up. I want to actually implement like the pre-sleep, like nighttime routine that I've had for years that I rarely do. I feel like I'm at the age where sleep is so important. Like, it's important at every age, but I feel like if I continue on with the sleep patterns and quantity that I have, I will start aging rapidly. So I want to work on sleep. The next book is, what is a book that you've had forever that you still need to read? This is actually tough for me because I am not someone who buys a lot of books and then doesn't read them. Like, if I buy a book, I'm going to read it right away. And that's always been the way that I am. I don't have like a whole bookshelf of like TBR or whatever, like books that I've never read. That's just not me. Another sort of thing that made this more difficult was that I moved to this city 2.5 years ago, and I live in Europe, I live in Denmark, and I am from Canada. So when we moved here 2.5 years ago, we really didn't bring that many books, and I haven't bought many physical books since. I've just been like buying books on my e-reader. There's 2 books that I had that we have more than 2 books here, but there are 2 books here that I have had forever that I haven't read, so I can share them. The first book is When the Body Says No by Gabor Maté. This is a nonfiction book about essentially the physical, neurological, hormonal effects of stress and sort of the psychosomatic conditions that you can develop, or how our emotional trauma crises can progress, or how they can affect our physical body as well. I don't like reading nonfiction books. I It's not that I find them boring. I get bored. I need a plot to really keep me going. I'm often interested in nonfiction books, and whatever it is, when I try, it just doesn't suck me into it, because I just, like, that's what I read to escape, and I want a plot to do that for me. However, I used to go through periods where I would buy a lot of nonfiction books that were related to my career because I felt like I should read them, and I just don't. And for whatever reason, when we moved here, those are the only physical books that I brought with me. I was like, now's the time. I'm finally going to get to these nonfiction books. I have not. So I really want to attain the information that is in this book. I have started it in the past, and I just didn't finish it. It was interesting, but I really want to learn what is in here, and so I'm finally going to do it. The other book that we have a physical copy of that I haven't gotten to is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And the reason that I haven't read this book is because it's technically owned by my partner. He has a tendency of asking for books for Christmas and his birthday that he then is really slow to read. He does not spend nearly as much time reading as I do, or he does, but he's reading stuff for his work. And so we have so many books that he has asked for, and he just reads them so slowly. And because he's usually asking for classics books, I have a tendency of reading them before he does. And there was a time when this happened a lot, and he got really upset, and I had to promise that I would stop reading his books before him. Like, he should be able to read his new books first. So that is why I have not read East of Eden yet. This also came with us from Canada to Denmark. The last question, let me check my laptop, is one word you're hoping 2021 will be. The word that comes to mind is better. I really hope 2021 is just overall better than last year. For me personally, if I was to spend some time thinking about what I want to get out of this year, I would really like to have more fun in my life. I would like to be more playful, be more fun, be more lighthearted. Okay. So that is the New Year book tag. If I've mentioned any books that you also want to read this year, let me know down below. And if you have any specific goals for 2021 for reading, I'd love to hear about that as well. Thanks for joining in this time, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.